I'm Dana Arnett.
And I'm Carlos Apene.
And this is Wicked Marketing. So glad that you could join us. And today we're going to talk about social media and how to use it to your advantage, which is always a great topic. And certainly everybody out there, I'm sure, has heard plenty about social media and the necessity of using that in your business.
Yeah, it's funny because back in 2017, we wrote a book called Influence Over Coffee. And it was during the time of the rise of the influencer, right? The social media influencer. And in that book, we broke down the pieces, which are still very relevant.
Still applicable. They still exist. They
still exist.
Except Periscope.
Except Periscope. Yeah. I think it's still around, but not
nobody talks about it so
nowadays.
much.
It's more like about TikTok. Mm-hmm. And what we said in the book, which is still applicable today, is that a lot of people that we talk to are frustrated because they either have a smaller mid-sized business and they hear all this great stuff about social media, and then they start trying to get into social media, or they are in social media and they're just not seeing the results, and they're everywhere. They're putting content everywhere and they're not getting the results. And
a lot of time, a lot
of money,
right?
Paying staff. They all have coordinators doing social media as part of their job, or their assistants.
They don't even know why they're doing it because they just know they're supposed to do it.
They just have to do it.
Right.
Yeah. And so usually when we get a new client, I've heard that many times, that issue many times. And the first thing that I tell them is like, well, why do you have to be everywhere?
Right.
Right. Have you taken a minute to sort of sit back and think about what you're doing here, right? So think about it this way. If I were selling boats, right, and I had these small boats that were for jet skiing or whatever. Not jet skiing, skiing. Water skiing, not jet skiing. It would be selling.
But I'd be selling the jet skis too.
Jet skis too, because you're selling boats. You're not going to go sell them in the fair, right? Or
the OC fair. That was good.
Yeah, the OC fair, or at the mall. Maybe at the mall. maybe at the mall. But you're going to go sell them at the marina, right? Because that's where people are going to get to see the boat. They're going to get to interact with the boat.
Ideal customers.
They already have an intention to get on a boat, right? So in that general area, or you're going to have a boat store, right, that people know in Florida. You're not going to have it in, I don't know, Utah.
City of Commerce.
Or, well.
Actually you would because it's California, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Utah, maybe
like
not the boats.
Utah, not the boats. Like, I don't know, North Dakota, maybe not the boat place.
Right.
I don't know. So what I'm trying to say there is you really have to think about what your product or service is and who are the people that you're trying to connect to, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your product or service is. There is a core group of people, which I've always called the core, right?
We talk about that in the book,
and we talk about that a lot. That are the people that are going to interact with your brand for a period of time, right? So, and this is a question that I ask a lot of our clients. What would you rather have? 1,000 people that spend $1 with you and never come back, right? Hence, $1,000. Or 50 people that spend that dollar with you 500 times.
Repeatedly, yes.
Right? So think about it that way, right? So that people tend to go after the larger number thinking more people, more money.
Right. It makes me, it's a little bit tied to ego, and I think naturally, we've had this too in our business, you think, the more likes and the more follows, that means engagement. And it doesn't necessarily mean engagement. It just means that maybe somebody passed by and they're not even engaging, but they liked it.
Yeah.
So we could get on that whole thing, but let's go back for a second to what we were talking about platforms, because we do have clients say, I want you to advertise on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube for me. And we're saying, okay, we do all of those, but can we look first and see if you should be on all of those?
Exactly.
That's how it starts for us, to be able to get some clarity on what this particular client. And Carlos is really good at explaining what each of the platforms, the people that are coming to the platforms, and where that might be your market or not.
Right, and that's the thing, right? So if you identify that your core, the people that those 50 people that buy with you 500 times that dollar spent, and you really look at them, right? And that element of having them interact with your brand, product, or service for a long time is a term that in marketing is called lifetime value. So the lifetime value of your customer to you, right? What you should be looking for is what customer has the longest lifetime value for me. What's the customer that's going to stick with me and my product or service, right? Because that's your core. Those are the people that are at the core connecting with your messaging, with what you're putting out there. And then once you analyze that, you're going to determine who they are, right? Are they young? Are they middle-aged? Are they senior? Mm-hmm. Are they men? Mm-hmm. Are they women? Are they on the East Coast? Are they on the West Coast? Like, you start creating what is called a persona, right? These are general terms around who this core person that interacts with your brand is. And then when you look at it, if you start identifying that these are younger kids, for example, where are younger kids? How do they
and we don't mean
interact
kids,
with social media?
Necessarily. We mean like the over 18. So you're saying younger people,
Younger
right?
people.
Right.
Younger people, yeah. Where are they? So we know that certain social networks are where the younger people are more active, right? The very young, towards over 18, are in TikTok right now, which is a musical type social network. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like a musical skit type social network. The just over 18 prominently are on Instagram and Snapchat. And believe it or not, even though Instagram has sort of eaten a lot of Snapchat's market, there's still a lot of them that do go to and connect on
We do some
Snapchat.
very successful advertising on Snapchat, and people don't talk about it so much anymore, except that generation. My niece is 20, and Snapchat is a very big deal for she and her friends.
It's still a way that they connect. When you start getting into more like 24, 30, towards even 55, 65, like the older ones, that's more of a Facebook world, right? Because that's the broadest sort of, and it goes. And believe it or not, I know that people are talking in market nowadays that the younger people are leaving Facebook. They're not leaving Facebook. They still go on Facebook. They just don't like to talk about it.
You'll never know they're there because they do
won't
not. They don't want to be left out, but they are not participating because they know their parents are there.
They know their parents and grandparents.
And grandparents are there.
I've had more than one experience with my grandma jumping on one of my posts. And I'm like, I forgot that my grandma was on my Facebook. And I'm not the youngest of the audience.
Honey, not anymore.
But the idea here is that, okay, so we look at what is my product or service, right? If you have something like a actual physical product, where are the places where I should be? If you have a physical product, you're probably not supposed to be on LinkedIn, right? Because at least advertising your product, you would be advertising your company, or you would be talking about your company to other executives or other business people. But you wouldn't be putting your purses on there for people to buy them, right? That wouldn't be smart. Where would you put them? Well, if your purses attract a younger generation, then maybe Instagram is a great way.
Because it's so visual that you could, if you had some great imagery.
Yeah. If it's an older demographic, and by older, I just mean more adult demographic, then you probably want to go on Pinterest.
Right.
Right. And that's a place where you are able to do shoppable pins so people can purchase directly
and
from
you
the
can
pins.
really build a beautiful board of your brand on Pinterest and be able to have that seen.
On Instagram, you can also do shoppable Instagram posts. So the challenge there is that because Instagram is younger, hipper,
Right.
You probably, because young people are so visual, and this millennial Gen Z generation is more of a video generation.
That's right.
Than the older generation that was used to print and magazines
Yes,
that are more flat, right? That's where Pinterest comes in. On Instagram, you're probably going to want to do stories too. Instagram stories, right?
Sure.
And little videos and show the movement of the purse, show that person carrying the purse, how it hangs, so that the millennials and Gen Zers can make decisions based on that.
You know, it's funny. I've bought 2 pair of shoes, don't tell my partner, in the last month, because on my feed and Instagram, it's a pair of shoes. It's a sponsored ad. I understand all of that. But the girl's turning. It's a pair of shoes. She's turning in her little outfit with her shoes, and she's got really cute clothes. That makes the shoes look great. So even if you have something like just a purse, but it's how you dress it up and become something that grabs your eye, and then I buy.
Yeah, and I saw this on one of our clients. I'm not going to give exact numbers. I'm going to give broad numbers because it's a proprietary and private information. But let's say one of our clients has a younger audience core demographic, right? And through our data gathering behind the advertising that we're doing and the organic work that we're doing, I was able to realize that of that audience within the past month, people tend to click on average on 40 ads on Instagram. 40 in a month.
Crazy.
So
That's more than one a day.
Talk about effective.
Right.
Talk about effective advertising. So that just goes back to, whereas we were annoyed by these ads because magazines went from having 50% of the magazine be something great, and then the other 50 was ads, to being like 70 or 80% ads. It was so, I remember.
It's not fun.
I remember, not to put them on the spot, but Architectural Digest. My dad, being an interior designer, we got Architectural Digest at home, right? And I would love to sit with him because he was so passionate about architecture, and look through the magazine and see all these great, beautiful homes. And over time, the magazine got thinner, and it was hard to find that editorial. It was hard to find, like, where are these living rooms?
Right.
All I see is ads that look like it's the inside of a home, but you're actually selling me that kitchen. So it's the same sort of concept here when you're talking about social media. You want to make sure that when you're trying to connect with people on social media and you're putting your efforts forward, that you're creating content for them that is specific to that medium, right? So if I'm creating content for Instagram, what's important there is the image that you're putting on it. And keep in mind, this is for the people that are not social media marketers that listen to our podcast, that part of what Facebook, Instagram, which is the same company, takes into consideration, and it's actually Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. They're all the same company. One of the things that they take into consideration in places like Instagram is the amount of text that you have on the image. So when you're creating all these posts with all these keywords on Instagram, for example, which, just so we're clear, the best number of keywords is between 9 and 12 hashtags to put in there for effectiveness and reach. That's not only what's helping drive your reach. What helps drive your reach, meaning the amount of people that you reach with that post, is the level of engagement that people have with that post, and also the qualifier that Instagram gives that post of how relevant it is, which is the relevancy, right? And that's determined by how effective it is at getting people to engage, but also the amount of text.
That's right. And the engagement is either a like or a comment.
Comment, or stop. This is the part that people don't realize.
I always forget that, and I know.
People don't realize that, right? They think, I have to get a lot of likes, or I have to get a lot of comments, because that's going to increase the number of people that see my post. Not necessarily. So Instagram is tracking when people stop
Think about it. Think about it. Visualize in your mind as you're scrolling through something, and you on Facebook, whatever, through your feed, and then you stop to look at something. You haven't touched it, but you stop. That is tracked.
That is tracked, and that is taken into consideration when you're looking at the reach. So we started going down the rabbit hole, but what I'm trying to say to you is, when you're looking to create a social media strategy, the first step is to determine, who am I looking to connect with?
And where are they?
You should reserve your name on all the social networks, right? So meaning you open a Pinterest account, even if you have one pin. But you don't have to be on all the social networks. You don't,
because your people aren't. There are clients that we have that are simply on LinkedIn because they're building a B2B business. They are trying to connect with other executives or other corporations or other business owners, or they're marketing to develop a relationship with people that they could partner with. So that's very much a business. It's nice to have a profile, but you don't necessarily want to advertise or put a lot of energy into that if you're marketing to baby products.
And that's the thing, right? If I'm on Facebook, I'm there to look at my family pictures, right? And I'm
great
on
place
break.
for a baby product.
I'm on break, and I'm there to look at my family pictures. The last thing I want to see is someone talking to me about marketing, on my Facebook, right? And in your case, the last thing you would want to see is someone pitching you.
And I want to say, and I'm not going to get the title right, but I came across a video that was maybe a year old or so that Nike put out. And I think it's called Let's Go Crazy. And Carlos and I were looking at it the other day. And you're watching this thing, and it's so profound and so just beautiful, and imagery, and just there's a lot of emotion that comes up when watching it. And it's very high level. I have no idea what the brand is. I have absolutely no idea. And at the very end, it says something like, "Let's go crazy," and then it says, Nike. Mm-hmm. And it was like,
we should be sponsored by Nike with all
the Nike we mentioned. He loves Nike. But that kind of a thing, it's like, the idea of having to get directly in people's faces. Obviously, if you're selling a purse, that's super important. But to really kind of get a little bit what is going to engage people and get them to stop, like you said.
And that's the thing, right? You want people to stop. You want people to like. You want people to engage, to comment on it, distribute it.
Share it.
Right? Because that's going to drive brand lift. That's something that we're going to talk about another day. So in order for you to achieve any of those, right, you have to dedicate time and effort to going on there, learning, growing, interacting, right? Because one thing that people don't realize is that human beings are, for the most part, followers. And they're followers of followers.
That's right.
Not followers of leaders.
That's what we talked. I must have done 2 chapters in the book about that, because it is fascinating.
We did. So you could be all the leader of industry that you want, right? But if you don't have followers, and people can't see followers on your social network, then they're not going to follow you.
Nope.
So at the beginning, you have to figure out, how do I get more people?
Right.
And a lot of people do a friends and family round, right? They get their friends and family to join them.
Like my page, join my group. Yeah. So lots of great tactics along those lines, and hopefully that's a cursory overview. Mostly, I would hope people feel that what they got from this is that they don't necessarily have to be everywhere. That's not necessarily effective, nor is it needed. So
no, and the thing is, if you determine I need to be on 3 social networks, right? Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook. Dedicate to one of them at a time.
Right.
Build your core on one of them at a time. And then what you do is you help migrate that core audience from one to the other. Once you've got your Instagram going and you know what you're doing there, then start building your Pinterest. And then mention to your Instagram, hey, I just launched this Pinterest wall. Come follow me there so that you'll get this and that.
Carlos is right, one at a time, because you can't tackle it all, because it doesn't, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Well, and you have to figure out what works. Right. And what works on Instagram.
You don't want to not be working across all 3 as you figure it out.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So thank you so much for listening today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And please join us on our next podcast. I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about yet, but we'll have something fascinating, no doubt.
Make sure you follow us or subscribe to our podcast if you found any of this useful. We will have a lot more useful information for you coming up in the future.
Talk to you next time.